Hi everyone, I'm Angela Reid. I'm a Florida Master Gardener, Hernando County Master Gardener, and I have grown herbs for over 12 years now. I had a large nursery business in Keno, Oregon, hence the name Keno, that's where that comes from. I had a 100-foot greenhouse and two 50-foot greenhouses. And I specialized in growing herbs for garden centers, which I would deliver weekly. And so I pretty much grew, there are 300 kinds of basil, and I only grew about 20 different varieties. But depending on the season, they were always in demand. But what I want to show you today is something that I came up with several years ago. And okay, I came up with the idea for wine bags because it has 6 different compartments. And since I'm not a wine drinker, I thought that would be a great way to grow herbs and have them inside the house. I could have them in the kitchen. I could have them inside my RV. My daughter has a bus that she's converted into an RV, and they travel all around the country, and that way she can have her herbs in her kitchen on her bus. And so it turns out really to be a handy thing to have, because when you're traveling, you don't really know where you're going to be able to get herbs, and if you have them with you, and plus they just make your bus smell so nice. This is an example of what we have, a Publix grocery store here, and this is what they sell at Publix. You can buy these empty bags, but a lot of your grocery stores do sell the wine bags. They're going to be in the wine section of the store. And so what I'm going to show everyone today is how easy it is to turn this into a planter bag for your bus or even for your kitchen counter. This one sits on my kitchen counter, and I have just a styrofoam meat tray, which I change out every now and then. This one is sitting on the little vegetable tray, plastic vegetable tray, where you get zucchini and such. So to start with, you don't want to fill your bag completely with soil because it gets very, very heavy. Plus, you don't really need all that soil. You just need to make sure that the different compartments stay separated. All right, and that's what we have going on here. So I start out doing a bag. I will break up styrofoam. And the styrofoam is because we don't put rocks in the bottom of a bag. First of all, that makes it really, really heavy. And my big question is, once again, where did you get those rocks? And were they sanitized? Were they clean? Unless you got them from an aquarium store, they're not clean rocks. If you got them from your driveway, who knows what peed on them, what walked on them, and you really don't want those in your kitchen. So that's why I use styrofoam, and I break it up in little pieces, and I put that in the base of my wine bag. That's this bottom half. It's got about this much styrofoam in it on the bottom. That's about what you need for drainage, and that's the whole point of putting rocks in the bottom of a pot even, is that you want the drainage. You don't want the root to start spinning around and around. You want it sitting in water. You want them to be able to breathe and get some air so you don't choke out your roots. So the next step is we're going to put soil. This is a mix. I mix my own soil. This is a mix of peat moss and just regular topsoil. And if you buy it, I think Miracle-Gro comes, you can buy it in a little bag if you're on the road, and it'll be ready made up, and it'll have styrofoam in it. But that's not the same as, you still want to put the styrofoam in the bottom. Like maybe a fourth of this in the bottom of your bag should be styrofoam. So we're doing the styrofoam, then we add our soil. And when we get our soil in here, the next step is you want to select a plant. All right, let's just say basil's always good. So here's some basil that I'm going to plant in one of the compartments. We add some more soil. So for each compartment, I've got soil almost to the top, and then I'm going to plant my basil. You want to just pull the roots apart a little bit. You don't want them to just be in a knot. So we're going to just pack it down. Put some soil on top. Okay, soil on top. And if you have questions, my email address will be at the bottom, and you can send me your questions and I will answer them for you. So there's that one. And then we're going to do, what's our next thing? Everyone likes oregano. Let's do some oregano. The biggest thing you want to do is don't plant something if you're not going to cook with it. If you're going to use it in a recipe, then that's the whole point of doing your kitchen herb bag, is that you want to do it with herbs that you're going to actually use. Because when you're constantly cutting the tips of the herbs and using them in your recipe, and the flavor is right there in the very tip, is that it encourages them to branch out and get fuller and fuller. Otherwise, they're just going to get root bound. Because if it doesn't, if you cut the top, it's called cut and grow, you're going to encourage it to grow. If you don't cut it, it's going to get root bound. The roots are going to grow down in the bottom and think they're going to make a permanent home, and they're not going to give you enough foliage at the top. And that's what you're cooking with herbs. Herbs are your foliage. So next, let's see, let's try some tarragon. Tarragon is a nice herb. It's got a little bit of a licoricey taste. It's good with fish dishes and Italian food. So I'm going to put tarragon in there. So, and you see, this is not something that's going to take a whole lot of your time. It just takes, maybe a half an hour to get this together. So it's not something that's a major undertaking, and it's very hard to do. Let's try some dill. Now, the whole reason for using wine bags or grow bags are the big thing now, and there's a good reason for it, is it's called air pruning. So when the roots get to the edge of the inside of the bag, because of the oxygen in the air, they're going to turn around and go back in, because they're not going to be able to push through the bag. You're not going to see, I've had these for up to 3 years sitting on my counter, and at no time did I ever have roots coming through. And that's even with mint in them also. The mint did try and creep down into the next compartment underneath, but otherwise the mint did not split the bag open. So between air pruning, if you put something in a pot, the roots are just going to continue to wind around and around and around, and then pretty soon they're not going to be getting any of the nutrition from the soil that's in the bottom of the pot. It's just going to be like a sludge of water, and it's just not going to be something that is going to be conducive to good growing. So we're going to go ahead, and now we're going to try some lemon thyme. Lemon thyme is a good herb to cook with. So, all right, so now we've got Italian basil, we've got our oregano, we've got dill, we've got tarragon, we've got lemon thyme. The last row here is really good with fish, if you like to cook with the spices for fish. And now we're going to do sage. All right, getting ready for the holidays. We've got our sage, we've got oregano, and we've got Italian basil. So sometimes I even will do a theme bag for someone, and that will have, I'll do an Italian bag, and I'll just do the herbs for Italian recipes. I've done Thanksgiving bags that just has your 2 kinds of sage, and then thyme, and what you would use on a turkey. And so this one is just about done, except for the top dressing. And now we're going to get into why we use bark. I use shredded redwood bark. That's what this is here. You can get these in smaller bags, but this is what this is. And it's like a cedar bark, redwood. What it does is it will support the pH of your herb. A lot of people don't realize that your water comes out of the faucet because you want to have a nice drinking water. It's going to be between 7.0 and 8.0, and that's the most delicious drinking water. Herbs, the reason they get their flavor is because they're acidic. So herbs need acid to continue to grow and to continue to get that flavor. And that's what this is. This is shredded bark, shredded redwood bark. The pH of this is about 5.5, and the pH of your herbs start out, depending on what they are on the chart. Let's say that the dill is maybe 6 point something. The tarragon and the thyme, those are going to be 5.4 or 5.5, and even in your 6.0. So what you're doing by putting on the redwood bark is your two things. You've got a top dressing on this. If you have cats around, cats don't like to play around in redwood bark. It's too strong of an odor for them. And they'll pretty much leave it alone. That goes for dogs too. They don't really like it that much. So we're going to top everything off with a little bit of the redwood bark, and especially the basil, because basil will start to get yellow if it doesn't have enough acid. And if you've got basil at home and you just got it from the store, and it's doing fine, and then a week or two later it starts to get yellow in the center, that is because the pH is just too high for it, because you're watering it right out of your faucet and you're not adding any acid. Now I tried an experiment using apple cider vinegar in a gallon jug, and I put apple cider vinegar, I put like 6 tablespoons in there in a gallon of water, and I checked the pH. And then it lowered the pH a little bit, and I said, okay, well maybe the people that don't want to be, they want to go totally organic and they don't believe in the redwood bark, they could do the apple cider vinegar. Came back an hour later, water was 7.0. So the apple cider vinegar does not, once it's diluted, it will just remain diluted, and it'll just fade away in the air. So that wasn't a solution. So if someone comes up with something better than the redwood bark, let me know. But I've used this for over 12 years and sold a lot of herbs. So this seems to be the way to go. All right, so we're done. And you see, we didn't use that much. I do have a funny story about the styrofoam. Depending on the static electricity that's in your house. I had a friend who I asked her, can you break up some styrofoam for me? So she took some styrofoam meat trays and she was breaking them up, and she had 2 basset hounds, and her basset hounds walked in the living room and they had just balls of the styrofoam hanging from their ears that just clung to the dogs. So I recommend a dryer sheet. So I usually, when I'm doing this, I usually have a dryer sheet in my pocket, and first I'll rub it on my shirt and then I'll start breaking it out. So that's just a little tip about using styrofoam. But styrofoam is the best drainage that you can use. So the last step we do is anytime you transplant something, you always want to prevent transplant shock, and that's what Quick Start does. And it says right on it, this is Miracle Grow. There are other brands. It says planting and transplant starting solution. So in other words, I have yanked these roots out and put them in a new spot, and they're going to be droopy for 2 or 3 days unless I mix up some transplant solution and everything gets a little bit of a shower with it for the first 2 days. And that way you're going to have happy plants. If you if you get problems I really go with the two natural products that I like to use. One is neem oil. You can get neem oil concentrate and mix it yourself. That's what this is. It's from the neem tree, so it's natural, and neem is in a lot of different sources, so it's used widely, and it's really good for aphid control and small bugs. Now, if you're going to set out your wine bag on your porch, and caterpillars or moths are going to lay eggs in there, and you see you've got some sort of a little worm problem, then you want to use Captain Jack's dead bug, which is a really good, kills bagworms, beetles, gypsy moth, leaf miners, spider mites, just you pretty much name it. And this comes from a natural source because it's a byproduct of rum. When they make rum, it's called spinoside, and they used to throw it away, and then they had it in a barrel. Someone walked by it and noticed there's caterpillars just floating at the top, and they noticed that even though it was a harmless product, it did kill the bugs. So that's why it's called Captain Jack's dead bug. So, and I don't get any commission off this. I just like his product. It's inexpensive and it goes a long way. So if you have any questions, you can email me at kenoherbs@gmail.com, and I will answer your questions for you. And once again, happy gardening.